Good morning. This is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to talk about. We're going to have to talk about it, unfortunately. Manchester City 6, Manchester United 3. If you're watching the video, please like and subscribe. I know it's going to be a tough one to get through. If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to get your comments and questions in. And if you're watching on the replay, say hello. Feel free to comment. We do reply to the comments that we get. Paul, I don't even know. Before we begin, how are you doing? How was your weekend apart from Manchester United's performance?
No, it was okay. Nothing really different. I was at London Stadium just to watch West Ham v Wolves, and just finding out a little bit before and speaking to people from Wolverhampton Wanderers is that I knew before the game that there was going to be a change. I knew that there was a lot of people just who weren't happy with the way things were. The football they were saying was disappointing. They said there was issues going on around the training ground. What was being delivered there, he wasn't going to last. And that performance from Wolves, and when you're playing Ruben Neves as a sweeper and you're still losing a game 1-0, there's a problem. And he played 90 odd minutes as a sweeper. Still, maybe one of their best players, making a job look so easy as a sweeper. When you don't push him on, then you know there's a problem.
The manager was sacked, and Wolves are looking for a new man. There seems to be a few of them. Middlesbrough sacked Chris Wilder this morning, so it's always that sort of early October sweep of the brush, isn't it? That you see a few managers get the axe. There'll be a lot of pressure on Erik ten Hag this morning, for sure. Like I said, 6-3 the derby. At one point, it was 6-1. And there was another point in the game where I felt like it was going to be 8-9-1 and not 6-3. So if you're to ask me how I feel this morning, I feel more like I watched an 8 or 9-1 loss rather than I did watch a 6-3 loss. I wasn't comforted by the late goals by Martial for sure. I don't think I'm catastrophizing there, Paul, by when I'm saying like it could have been 8 or 9. Because if you'd have said to me at 6-1, City need to score 3 more times to win the title on goal difference, I think they could have done it with ease. And I don't really know. I mean, we'll talk about the selection, we'll talk about the players in a moment and the manager. But the summary of the game, Paul, I mean, I think the scale of the defeat says, a lot of people could say United were a bit ring rusty. They hadn't played a league game for a month. It might have played a part in the slow start, but I don't think you can put it down to that. It was just a very, very bad day, wasn't it? I mean, I don't even know where to begin with it. It was so bad.
It was poor. From the moment the game kicked off, you could see United allowed City to have the ball, which you just can't do because they just picked up momentum and then got quicker and quicker. And then all of a sudden, they started to progress more forward, doing all their work in the final third. Dalot, always odds on to get the first booking. Stupid challenge he done on Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish was going nowhere. He allowed him to run and he didn't want to do his work, and it cost him a booking, so that affected him. Then all of a sudden he gave Grealish encouragement. I mean, Grealish, I think that's his best. I would say that was his best 45 minutes for City.
Yeah.
Where before he hasn't really done anything. And Dalot has been playing very well.
Yeah.
Saw him score 2 goals for his country while he was away. And you think he'll come back on a bit of a high. And he's always the one, whenever I do games, as I did yesterday, I talk about Dalot. I said he's doing well, but the problem is he gets too emotional and he gets too petulant. He thinks he has to keep winning the ball to be a good defender. If I was talking about a 15, 16-year-old, I suppose I'd accept it easier that you can see that enthusiasm, but not someone who's, I'm going to say, an established now right back of Manchester United and a right back for his national team. You'd expect a little bit more. But what happened to United in 6-3 was massively flattering, to be perfectly honest. City come out in the second half. I expected them to really go for it, but I think they come out like any team would do. You're 4-0 up at half time. It's very, very difficult to get the players going again. Best managers in the world, one as you see in Pep, still struggle to get them going. When they went in their little bits, you still saw how good they were. But people will come out and say, "Oh, I read something today on Twitter," and someone would come out and say, "I was happy what I saw with United, what they've done in the second half. It's said that we're not as far away as what as what we were before." And I think to myself, well, if you're not going to get a second half performance with a little bit of guts, passion, drive, and pride, then you've definitely got the wrong players if you're 4-0 down.
Yeah.
If you can't come out in the second half. And the saying is within football, if your manager will think in his head, if he's 3, 4, 5 down at half time, he will be virtually saying to the players, or he said to them, "We'll take 0-0.
Yeah.
We don't concede another goal."
Yeah.
And the manager's saying it, as players, you don't want to concede anymore. So anybody who's living off that second half performance, please don't, because it's there. It should be, that's imprinted. It's not down on a bit of paper, but you expect players to have pride when they go out in that situation. Sometimes, as we've seen with United of old, they've come back. United of yesteryear would have come back sometimes from being in that position. Under Ollie, United were coming back from 2-0 down. Yeah. But that was more down to the actual attitude of the players, which got found out after all those kind of results. So there's still a long way to go. I think he's suddenly seeing now really that the players who were playing involved in that 4-game, or I should say the 4 Premier League unbeaten run, or 4 on the bounce, the wins, they're still not up to it. They're miles away from it. They're the ones they need replacing, without a doubt. And it isn't reactive on my side of my part, I should say, of watching that game yesterday. It's just the fact it's always been there, and it's amazing what winning games, what it can actually hide.
Yeah,
winning games of football, as the saying goes, it papers over the cracks, and it's been papering over McTominay and 100% papering over Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah,
absolutely. And when you go to a game up against a high caliber team, and you look at his quality, then you look at what City of their quality, you know at the end of the day, he's not Manchester United. Without a shadow of a doubt, he is not Manchester United. He came to United and he made a big, big difference in the lockdown league. No crowds around, nothing to affect him emotionally, empty stands. And the moment he's got into stadiums with fans in, he's not the same player. And I'll say it again, I can see why he's been in Portugal for so long. I see it now. He's gone away on a couple of occasions, come straight back. And I think there's reasons why. And Michael Oliver done the best thing, and maybe other referees will see it now. He booked him because of his tantrum.
Yeah.
When he was totally wrong, he was nowhere near right with what he was screaming about. And Michael Oliver didn't even bother going to speak to him. He just put his card up and just said, "Have that," and every right to do it to him. And that's the captain of Manchester United.
Yeah, no, I can't really argue with that. I mean, look, when the defeat is so heavy, you look at 3 things. I'll come to the comments first. Patrick has put 3 comments in, so I'm going to read them. Patrick said, "Morning, guys. A heavy Derby Day defeat. City are obviously ahead of us with their setup, style of play, coaching, and confidence. It's going to take a year or so to go toe-to-toe on our terms. We had clear limitations with confidence on the ball, in midfield, and attack. So we never gave ourselves an opportunity to stay in the game in the first half. I hate to pick out names, but McTominay, Bruno, Rashford, and Sancho don't give us a chance to have some care and cuteness with the ball against a really good team, albeit we worked hard against Liverpool." Yeah, I mean, this is a point, right? So when a defeat is that heavy, Paul, you do look at it and you say, all right, City played well. You can't say that they didn't play well. But from a United perspective, you have to put it on the players or the manager. And if you're going to start saying a lot of these players are not up to it, then that's obviously a massive red flag and a massive concern. And you mentioned the run of results, and we did see good showings against Liverpool, and we did see a decent performance against Arsenal. All we should also concede that Arsenal probably deserved something from the game, but they were still better performances. I really don't know how to sort of summarise what happened, because in defence, you had the first time any of those that had played in a derby, apparently, especially as a collective, that's never happened. In the midfield, McTominay and Fred, they've been picked to play that role against City for a purpose in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, and then that's the knock-on question from that is, can you play Bruno and Eriksen in this in the same team against City? Can you play? And not even, I don't want to sound like I'm digging out Eriksen, because he was probably the calmest on the ball, but Bruno and McTominay on really strong at rhythmic possession. They're not going to be the players who are going to keep hold of the ball for you. Fernandes will take the gamble with the pass, and McTominay just, we've seen he's got strengths because he's shown them in the last few games. But in a game like this, you would put him alongside Fred. Can you play Sancho and Rashford, who are too passive? They're not. You need to. City, if they've got vulnerabilities, it's in the back line. So you're going to need attackers to be hungry and wanting to, cause those errors and force those mistakes. And they weren't doing that. And if you need players like that, you're going to need more assurance, more aggression, more self-confidence. We were talking last week, Paul, about this, and I understand why he didn't start Casemiro, but I wonder, considering what happened against Brentford, considering what happened against Brighton, was there not a point of him where he looked back and said, "All right, well, let's look at the qualities that we've got in the squad. Let's look at the results that we've had over the last 2 or 3 years. Look how we achieved those results." He would have seen that under Solskjaer we had a good run of results against City. So why didn't he look at the squad and say, all right, this is the kind of combination of players that you need, because all right, we looked at Brentford and Brighton, and they obviously caught Ten Hag by surprise. And I think it's the first time he's come up against City, Guardiola's City. And all right, he's seen Guardiola work at close quarters with Bayern Munich, but that was with I know Bayern have got the greatest resources in Germany, but it's still the resources of a football club, whereas City have got, they're a different behemoth in terms of what resources they've got. They can facilitate the eradication of mistakes in a single transfer window, whereas Bayern couldn't do that. So you've seen Guardiola's style of football, as perfect as it can be, as dominating as it's going to be. I'm just wondering, was there no point? Do you think that Ten Hag should have looked back at the I'm not saying Solskjaer was perfect. He most obviously was not, but the tactics that he got against City were generally decent for the squad with the limitations that we've got. And I wonder why he didn't look at that and just think, do you know what? Yeah, playing in midfield, well, it's got one player in it was comfortable on sort of keeping possession of the ball, and two who were just going to give it away is not, it's not a good game plan when you've got two forwards who are not confident on, like Rashford and Sancho were nowhere near confident enough to run it. So it was almost like he picked the worst combinations of players for the game that we had.
I'd imagine, because I think he's quite astute and everything, that he would have seen those games. But sometimes, people still talk about Ollie and going to playing against City. I don't know if a little bit. There must have been, a little bit of good fortune there as well.
Yeah,
I was there on a couple of occasions at the Etihad when the wins. The League Cup, and was it a League Cup game or FA Cup? Something. There was a cup game there, and then I saw the one where Martial scored that one at the near post. I think that must have been about season 2018-19, I think it was, and he scored that when he scored, I think, the winning goal at the near post against Edison at the opposite end to where the away supporters are, and he would have looked to that, and then he would have seen the players that he had available. He would have gone by the performances. He would have turned around about trusting them. He would have then said about gaining their trust. And he would have said, I'm sticking by you in a big game. This is what Manchester United thrives on, big games. You look at, you've got your big players. And they let him down, to be perfectly honest. I've been reading for the last 2 weeks all about the reasons why Sancho should feel hard done by. He wasn't in the England squads, and I'm reading a little bit. If Rashford was fit, would he have been there, or he should have been there? I'm seeing that Rashford won Player of the Month. And I'm kind of chuckling because I really don't understand it. Rashford and Sancho have been poor. They've been poor all season, and what's kept them in people's head is they've scored goals in big games for Manchester United, Arsenal and Liverpool games. But if someone was to watch all the minutes they've played so far this season, they'll be actually saying to themselves, no, they don't deserve to be playing for their national team. It's amazing how when you score a goal, it's suddenly you put on rose-tinted glasses and you forget everything prior to the goal and then after the goal, and you just player lives off of goals. Marcus Rashford, he was poor. He was seriously poor again. Every time he was centre forward and he kept giving the ball away, he wasn't holding the play up. He wasn't even closing down. He was jogging around. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Marcus Rashford is as much a centre forward as I am a goalkeeper, to be perfectly honest, and that's at 58 years of age. And I think I could still be a better goalkeeper. I might be able to stop the ball. Be a bit worried about being chipped though, but it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. His performance, Sancho, terrible. Never done anything positive at all. Those two, in what we were seeing. So, and then when you look at it, the one player who I would like to have seen on that pitch would have been Fred.
Yeah.
Just for the fact of he can get around the park. He's athletic, he's industrious, and he's tenacious. So City would not have passed the ball that easy if he was in there. He might have held him up for a split second to affect him not to knock a pass in between Dalot and Varane.
Yeah.
And little bits like that, he might have done it. I don't think Scott McTominay really made a challenge in the game. He ran around as he does. He runs around 6'3" and runs around his height, never drops down and tries to move his feet quicker. It's just slow and ponderous. You wanted someone in there tenacious, and I could understand if he'd have left Scott McTominay and bring in Fred, or if he didn't play Fernandes and played Fred in there with Eriksen. But just somebody who was just going to go out there and be brave, and nothing phases Fred, to be honest. He's the first person everyone has a go at, without doubt. But he's the one that you're going to get something positive out of him in the big games, because he treats every game the same.
Yeah.
And in a game like that, you just know you say Fred, win it and give it, and he'll be the best around because of the way he is, and he's honest. He has a shot at goal, which Edison saves, and then when Martial comes in. Yeah, and he's there. He's around there. He's busy. He can get from one end to the other. Can you remember those midfield players? Used to call it box to box, which those kind of players who are willing to run, not these ones who want to be a CDM and look at me, I'm sitting here in the safe zone. Fred's willing to go in there, and he's not. And if he makes a mistake, he'll go and do it again and see if he can get the right decision to make it better. He's the kind of players that Manchester United need. And hopefully Ten Hag will see that. He will see that at the end of the day is that Scott McTominay, everyone's saying he's done well, he deserves to be there. I suppose he does. But if you want to step on, you need to look beyond him, and you think of better ways to get beyond him. Casemiro comes on a sub. Whenever he comes on a sub, it looks like he hasn't washed his feet for a year. It takes him that long to get himself going. He looks scruffy when he comes on. He may be not the best at warming up as a sub, but you get him into a game early, then you might find that there's something there. At the moment, people are going, oh, I'm not sure, we wasted money there. As that game went on yesterday, you could see him getting better more and just feeling his way into it. Now, he needs to start in the game. He needs to start, and he needs to look at his midfield.
Yeah.
What is going to be the midfield that can take Manchester United forward? Not to catch City this season, forget about that. It's about, can Manchester United, and seeing that Liverpool have taken a step back, the way they've kind of conducted themselves over the last few seasons with what they've done, they've had a massive surge, but they haven't gone with the future. That's why they're finding problems now within it, is that they haven't built a little bit within to take them to the next stage to compete again to win the Premier League at this moment in time. that's the bit that's caught them out. They haven't. Well, at the moment, they're just struggling to get any momentum at all in their play or results. But United can still do it. They've got Casemiro sitting on the bench. They've got Fred who can't get there. That's where the problem is still in midfield. That is the biggest problem still with Manchester United. Something that he can deal with because there's 2 players on that bench you can use. The biggest problem he can't really deal with because he hasn't got the personnel to do with it. And that is the attacking side of it. Anthony, in the second half, I would say was United's best player.
Yeah,
he was brave at both ends. In the first half, it took him 15 minutes to get a touch of the ball.
Yeah,
but he never went missing.
Yeah,
and I turn around and always say, because I remember Sir Alex saying it about big players. He said, "You look for big players to perform in your big games. If they don't perform in your big games, then they're not the right players."
Yeah. No, he was.
That's what he said.
We had that conversation last week. I remember when I was saying like one of my little minor concerns was that I'd not seen a lot of him make a stamping his authority on the game, but to have the confidence to score the goal in which he did is sort of allayed those fears somewhat. It was a great goal. So he joins the names of Mark Hughes and Darren Fletcher to score memorable goals in games you'd much rather forget against Manchester City. So yeah, I mean, look, you're dead on with everything you said. And Casemiro, again, the conversations that we've had in previous podcasts about this, you can understand why he's sort of been. If you'd have put him in from the start, yeah, now in hindsight, it looks like it might have had a better effect. But you can sort of understand why he didn't, because of it's a big game, and like it took Anthony 15 minutes to sort of to sort of know where he was. 15 minutes, the game was already up for United. So if you had Casemiro in that, so I'm a bit unsure on this Ronaldo stuff. He didn't bring Ronaldo on because of, he said that because of the career that he's had, and I can sort of understand. It was 6-1. You're not going to bring him on because all the headlines are going to be pictures of Ronaldo and everything like that. It doesn't do anyone any favors. And it still is the lingering conversation about whether or not the death of his child is still affecting him. I read some things about that recently. Don't want to underestimate that. Nor do I want to sort of start giving excuses for a supreme sportsman, but there's a lot of psychological things in there, and you'd be looking at it forward going, Casemiro and Ronaldo are probably going to get more minutes for sure, regardless of the games, because of the fact that the other players. And Anthony obviously made a good impression. I want to just have a quick word on City. Haaland, unbelievable. Foden, an incredible talent. Haaland has really transformed this Manchester City side. And I'm just wondering, Paul, I mean, everyone seems to be rejoicing in it. You hear Martin Tyler on commentary for Sky yesterday, and he was buzzing. He was buzzing because City were battering United. And everyone seems, they're going to enjoy that at the moment. I wonder if a game like that's going to be a bit of a watershed moment for British football, because they're going to do that to most teams, not just United, and they are doing it to most teams, especially with City, with Haaland in the team, because Haaland has transformed the way that Guardiola plays. This is a man who's famed for having the same system, but now he knows he's got Haaland in there. It's just crosses all the time, which tells you a lot about tiki-taka football and his belief in a philosophy.
But they are just quickly, Wayne. But they're crossing and they're hitting individuals rather than crossing, just percentage crossing. It's not just that in hope. It's precision.
Because they've got the best in the business at that. They've got De Bruyne, they've got Silva. Grealish is a great deliverer of the ball, so they've got all the right sort of tools to be able to do that as well. Mahrez is another one, so they are going to do that. And when you've got a striker like Haaland, who's he's going to go down as one of the best ever for sure, one of the best in Premier League history. You can say that as a cast iron guarantee. They are going to do that to most teams. And you look at the league, and I know I'm going to have to wash my mouth out after saying this, but the league has pretty much been fairly lucky that Liverpool have had consistency in the Paul League, because they've made it look competitive for 3 or 4 years, and it's really not. I mean, they've been good enough to develop that consistency to batter or to run roughshod over the worst teams in the league. And it made it look like, it's really competitive, the top two, and it really isn't. And now you see Liverpool dropping off, and you see one team. It's a grotesque advantage that they've got. And I wonder how many years people are going to look at this and say, this isn't great to watch anymore. It's not, it's not beautiful football. It's a result of massive financial injection, and it's pretty much unsustainable for the league. I mean, even the City fans, they were 4-0 up, 5-1 up, and the crowd was flat. Didn't mean anything to them. And really, there's no it's no watershed moment in British football in terms of, oh, that's a massive performance and everything like that. Because that City can do that. It's not surprising that they put 4, 5, 6 past us in a depressing way, but not for the reason like they think it is, like it's a result of beautiful football. And yeah, they're all crowing about it now, but do you think that it might be a result that sort of changes the way that people look at the way that City do things? Because there's beautiful football and there's winning trophies, and then there's ruining the league, which is looking like it's going to do. I mean, you put Haaland into that team, and yeah, every team buys players, and that's part of the process. But you've now seen the result of sort of 14, 15 years of City doing this to the league, and it was always going to end up this way. Do you think that it might sort of provoke something of a backlash? I mean, I'm not talking this result, but I'm talking like these kind of results in like 2 or 3 years. People are going to look at it and say, call it for what it is, basically, instead of just saying, "Oh, this is the best team that we've ever seen."
I don't think you can come out and I think it's an easy thing to say that when everything at the moment, because of where we are, everything's the best. Oh, well, he's the best there, he's the best there. And we keep forgetting what thing we're putting the past behind too quick. 5 years is the past now, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the way it's become. But what you're saying now, I get where you're going. I fully understand it. It's not, sometimes we like to see things built. We know that money always helps, but it's just about the way it's been done. But it's going to be. I mean, if we're going to judge it against anything, I think we have to judge it against maybe the German league, and it isn't going to change, is it? Really, the German league hasn't changed for years. The way because with Bayern Munich's strength, it hasn't changed. They're going out and getting these kind of results. The only team at one point who compete with them was Dortmund. I think when Klopp was there. I mean, there's always a team, but I mean, they sometimes went and played against them, and they would get beat 5, and that was a team that's supposed to be competing with Bayern. So it's been happening for a while, quite a while in German football already, and it's happening here to a point. Yes, you're right. It's lucky that Liverpool had a go last season, and they're tailed off, and there's no one else around at the moment who's going to get anywhere near them at the moment. So there is a problem, but it isn't going to change because there's too many people earning money out of it, Wayne. Yeah. Too many people earning money out of it. So I definitely want a competitive league because everyone says they're the greatest ever. And I always turn around and say, Manchester United, when we won the first Premier League, it was competitive right the way to the world. When we won the second one, it was competitive. And when in 95, 96, it was competitive.
Yeah.
Always competitive. And that's what everyone wants. Everyone wants it that way. No one wants to see someone just run away with it and then having to talk about the rest of it. And, so getting 90 odd points or even 100 points doesn't make you the greatest team ever. It gives you the greatest amount of points, but it doesn't make you the greatest team.
Yeah.
Nowhere near that. And as Roy said to the point, the points are never puts your points on the back of a medal.
Yeah.
It's never there. So when I see people saying, oh, United only got 70, 80 points when they won this and won that, that means the league was good and everyone was desperately trying to beat Manchester United. They hadn't given up when they turned up in the coach and go, we're not going to win here. So no, I mean, it's going to go on. We've got to accept it. I don't think there'll be a change at City until at some point Pep Guardiola moves on, and then there will be a change.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not going to go anywhere until he's won 1 or 2 European Cups because he's going to want that legacy. Ajmal says hello, good evening. Good evening wherever you are, mate. I hope you're well. Looking for some crumb of positivity. I mean, Liverpool, like we mentioned, they're a team who've gone through that transition. They challenged for the title in 2014. Then they lost 6-1 to Stoke and they got a new manager, and it still took them 3, 4 or 5 years to develop that sort of consistency. And that was the value of patience, support, the length of time that it takes to sort of put you back into a project like the one that Klopp had. And, he's got to keep banging that drum as we have done for the 3.5 years we've been doing this podcast together. You've got to note that period of time, because no manager has had that long since Ferguson. Like, they all get jacked at like 3 years. That's it. And, there will be more defeats. There'll probably be more embarrassing defeats, but those lessons will have to be learned by the players and by the manager. He can look at that and say, oh, that midfield didn't work, and we'll give him the benefit of the doubt this time, but it's going to have to be better in the next game. He's going to have a better plan. Like the likes of Dalot, like now he's having the greatest spell of his United career, and he's had a massive setback, and now you're going to give him this chance to respond. That's what we do as supporters and as a club, and then you're going to see whether or not he's got the fortitude that it takes to play for United. I feel like I've not given enough credit to Anthony for his incredible goal. So I would say, take something to come out of 9 goals and you've scored the best goal in the game, and barely anyone's ever talking about it. But he said it was a big thing for him, and like you said, he didn't go missing when the excuse was there to go missing. That when we've seen that, by the way, we did see that last season, and if there's one crumb of comfort, it's again that I'm not saying we was massively improved in the second half, because defensively we were very poor, but obviously we had a bit of a go at them. And yes, the 2 late goals were kind of given to us, but I would still say at least that's Ten Hag addressing the flaws as much as he could in a single game and going for it in the way that he did. So anyway, let's move on to talk about the other 2 games that United will be playing before we talk again next. Ammonia, they've had a difficult start in the Europa League. They've had a mixed start in their own domestic league as well. In the 80s, Paul, they were the most successful team in Cyprus. Most recently, they've had Henning Berg as their manager, obviously known to everyone watching and listening to this, before Neil Lennon took over earlier this year. The start of this season, they've won 3 and lost 2 in the league. They've lost both of their Europa games. Got battered off Sheriff, I seem to remember. I think it was by 3 goals. A couple of familiar names in the squad, one of them being Adam Matthews, the former Celtic and Sunderland defender, playing away on Thursday evening, I should say, Thursday afternoon, 5:45 kickoff again. Unpredictable. It's a long travel for United. You're going to have to sort of, it's a catch-22, because now this is a run of games where they are coming Thursday and Sunday. Before he was able to pick a strong side and it won fairly comfortably in Moldova. You would probably presume, without wanting to be too disrespectful to Ammonia, that he's got the ability in there to make 1 or 2 different changes. And yet, I know we've got Everton and we'll talk about them in a moment, but you kind of want to see a couple of changes to have a bit of a reaction in there, because United are now, it's not just about reaction in terms of results. They're going to have to start putting in some performances, aren't they? And that's going to have to start with the Europa League.
Yeah, I mean, he has to take this game a little bit more serious now. And the fact that we, it was a difficult start, but in the end, it finished off a good performance in the previous game in Europa League.
Yeah.
So this one coming up, it should. The scoreline did flatter the team that Ammonia played against. I have to say, United wiped the floor of them in the end. It should have been more, but This game is even harder because it's not so much harder. But this team, majority of their supporters support Manchester United anyway.
Yeah,
there's a good friend has already told me. He goes, there'll be so many United fans in there. He said it'll be ridiculous, but they're going to want to make a mark. Neil Lennon's going to want to make a mark and remind people that he's still out there. So, as far as he's going to be really pushing them to make a mark in this game. And so it's just about United, again, going through what they did in the last game, sorting themselves out with the pitch, as what they did before when they was there in their previous game. Here, it's going to be about the way the players are going to be going at them. You've got the mental side of the players playing now. Going there as well. They've got to deal with that. And if they can get through their first 15, 20 minutes without really giving them a sniff or any encouragement, they should cruise this game.
Yeah.
And then that'll put them in a better mode than what they were previously after what's happened yesterday. And that's the bit that Ten Hag has to do. The changes, what he's going to do. Yes, he should maybe make changes, but it's about what's going to be the right changes. is it right to bring in Ronaldo now after what happened at the weekend? What's his mindset going to be about? He's mostly heard what people have been saying. He's read what people have been saying. Does he really want to go out there and prove a point, or is he just going to shrug his shoulders and not really try as such? I don't know. When you look at it, Martial needs a run out now. Yeah. So somewhere along the line, I think he has to start a game. And then you're looking at Rashford and Sancho, two players who don't really deserve to be starting. Got to look at maybe one of them might start, or he might even start with a younger player and see what he gets there. Maybe just been sitting around on a bench a while. Maybe just give one of the younger players a start, just to send that little bit of belief within the squad. The younger players within the squad know there's a chance of them. If they hang in there and keep doing it right. But as well, more importantly, to the fans as well, so they can see that he's willing to look at the young players now and prove their point, looking what might be happening as the season goes on with younger players coming through and looking towards next season as well. So there is a lot of questions that there for the next game. People say, it's an easy one. It is in certain ways on paper, but for the manager, it's a difficult one because he's got to make the right choices. And it isn't about the football side of it. It's about what's in the player's head. I mean, at halftime, he brought on Luke Shaw. I think Malacia was a little bit mentally tired in his way because of played in two big internationals. Got to remember, as a young boy, I think there was an issue with Louis van Gaal. I think they kept piping up, so that might have been on his mind. But I remember Evra going into a Manchester derby and having an absolute nightmare. Yeah, he had a terrible time. And you look at the level he got to. Yeah. So Malacia, you saw what we've seen before. He had that moment. He brings on Luke Shaw. He might stick with that until the Everton game. It wouldn't surprise me. Lindelof will stay in now, won't he?
Yeah,
he will stay in. I don't think we can judge Lindelof off of what happened there. I thought he did all right. To be honest, I can't see anything sticking out. I think that was terrible. So he's got an opportunity to go and play a game of football as well midweek and maybe at the weekend as well.
Yeah, no, most certainly you're right. I mean, that's a thing that we didn't see a lot last season with Rangnick, and one of the things that really frustrated a lot of people was when we'd be defeated heavily the next week, the exact same team would start. At least he's got options in the team with the players that he's bought and the youngsters around the squad. That you would think that, possibly Elanga, possibly Garnacho will get minutes on Thursday night. We'll see how that goes. And, all right, the jury's still out on Elanga, but to give him a little bit of a run, will give him confidence and let him know that he's in the mix for that, and let the senior players know that they're not necessarily guaranteed a place just because they scored a couple of goals. The standard has to be better. They all know that at the moment. Big test next week. Absolutely bizarre time. Everton, 7 p.m. on a Sunday night. It'll barely have finished by the time that we're recording the podcast. So Lampard, he was odds on at one point, Paul, to be the next manager sacked. But at the moment, people seem to be warming to him again. It's a bit of, up and down with him. A bad time for United because Everton have picked up on the form. So you might say it's a bad time to be going to Goodison because their confidence is on the up. But maybe a good time as well because you go in there. It's a weird kick-off time. The crowd will definitely be up for it in a way that they probably even weren't at City. So the atmosphere is going to be there for the United players to sort of, to be stung and come out and do something. You're going to want to see something from the off. A massive reaction, on Thursday, but definitely on Sunday. So how do you see that one going?
Everton, one of those games at home where generally United always win. I think they do generally win that one. Goodison seems to be the place at the moment where they don't want it.
It is Goodison we're playing at.
Oh, blooming hell. I thought it was a home game.
No.
Christ almighty, wake up, Paul. I just off the back of it being away, I just assumed it's away. I haven't even looked at it, to be perfectly honest. No. Well, at the moment, they're not scoring a lot of goals, Everton. They're not exciting. and being at home and the way the fans have decided the way they're going, they're going very partisan to every single game. They're contesting every challenge. They're telling the referee what's a foul, what's not a foul. Everything is very, very hostile at the moment at Goodison. That's the way they've gone, and they've made it very, very difficult. It's not the most exciting football you're going to see at Everton at the moment, and Frank's having to, maybe at this moment, he's brought in certain players, but he's still dealing with the fact of what's happened over previous seasons with previous managers.
Yeah.
Lots of managers for Everton anyway. So I look at this game as, more important than the last Premier League game, because they can't afford to lose. You can't just suddenly go and do what they've done with 4 games and suddenly go and lose your next 2.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. To lose to City, then to lose to Everton as well, isn't away from home, isn't really good at this moment in time. It's not what's needed. Ten Hag doesn't need that, because all of a sudden he'll be under even more scrutiny than what he is now if they were to go to Everton. Everton will be on a high. Is it 7 games unbeaten now, Everton?
It's a good run. Definitely a good run.
Good run. Not the most exciting run, but it's one that's taken them away from being, like you mentioned, one of the favourites to go down, to a side now that's sitting in there, and Everton fans maybe just talking they're going to have something better than what they expected.
Yeah. And going to Goodison is always like a really good litmus test for some of the players. I mean, the likes of Martinez and, like you said, Malacia, maybe he'll get a chance to come back in for that one. And, Casemiro, it's a bit of a tighter pitch at Goodison, but you want to see Casemiro in there definitely now and seeing what he can do in combination with the likes of Eriksen and, possibly Fernandes. But if you've got the security of Casemiro and Eriksen, then maybe that'll make Fernandes look a little bit less wasteful than what he has been. And, that forward dynamic as well has got to sort of get a good rhythm going, so we know the players in there. But again, you've got Anthony at least stepping up to the plate. It'll be a very interesting week for United, and one that we'll be back to discuss next Monday morning. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please give it a like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening back on the audio podcast, please be sure to give it a review and subscribe on the platform you're listening on. I really appreciate everyone for listening and watching this week. No, it's been a tough one. We still love United, don't worry about that. It's just sometimes it's a little bit difficult to talk about it when it's a result like it was yesterday, but we stuck through it, and hope you've enjoyed the watch and listen. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.